The skies of Dowan Prime burned crimson as the last remnants of the planetary defense grid collapsed. Massive Haram warships descended through the atmosphere like hungry predators, their silver hulls reflecting the flames of the city below. The central command bunker Commander Taiho gripped the edge of the holotable, his knuckles white with tension. "Status report," he demanded, though he already knew the answer. "Third Fleet is gone, sir," reported his lieutenant, voice hollow. "Fifth and Seventh are scattered. We've lost contact with the outer colonies." Taiho closed his eyes briefly. Their civilization, one that had spent thousands of years building stellar academies, crafting breathtaking architecture across 27 worlds, and developing some of the most sophisticated biomedicine in the known galaxy, was being systematically erased. The bunker shook as another bombardment hit nearby. Dust rained from the ceiling. "The evacuation shuttles?" Taiho asked. "Only 30% made it to the jump points. The rest—" The lieutenant didn't finish. On the main screen, a transmission cut through their own communications. The sneering face of Haram Admiral Sungman filled the display. His gray skin was pulled tight in what passed for a smile among his kind. "People of Dowan," he announced, his voice broadcast across all remaining channels. "Your pathetic resistance ends today. Your fleets are destroyed, your colonies are ours. Even now my soldiers round up your people for processing in our labor camps." Sungman leaned forward, yellow eyes gleaming. "Did you truly believe your kind could stand against the Haram? We who conquered the spiral arm in less than a decade? The galaxy will forget you ever existed." Around Taiho, the remaining staff, once proud military officers of a peaceful civilization, watched in stunned silence as their doom was announced with casual cruelty. "He's enjoying this," whispered Communications Officer Gina. "They're broadcasting our defeat to every system in range." Taiho turned away from the gloating admiral. "Get me Elder Jiwoo, now." Minutes later, Taiho stood before what remained of the Doan High Council. Just 4 elders meeting in an underground chamber designed to shield them from Haram sensors. Elder Jiwoo, once robust and commanding, now looked frail in the dim emergency lighting. "The preservation protocol," Jiwoo said quietly. "It's our only option now." The other council members exchanged wary glances. "The humans?" asked Elder Myung. "We've observed them for decades but never made contact. They're still recovering from their own internal conflicts. They barely have established colonies on their neighboring planets. Which is precisely why the Haram have ignored them," Jiwoo countered. "They don't consider Earth a threat. The humans are tucked away in an unremarkable arm of the galaxy with nothing the Haram currently want." Taiho cleared his throat. "With respect, elders, what makes you think these humans would help us? Or even could?" Elder Jiwoo activated a small projector. It displayed footage taken from observation posts near Earth over the past century. Humans building, fighting, creating, adapting. "They solve problems differently," Jiwoo explained. "Their thinking isn't linear like ours or the Haram. They're unpredictable, and they have something we've lost. They're fighters by nature." The footage showed human conflicts, but also their recovery afterward, their incredible resilience. "Their technology isn't as advanced as ours," Taiho observed. "No," agreed Jiwoo. "But look at their rate of development. In just 1 century they went from primitive flight to walking on their moon. Another few decades they were launching probes beyond their system. They adapt faster than any species we've encountered." Elder Kang, who had remained silent until now, spoke up. "The stealth vessel program. We have 1 ship left." "The whispered hope," Jiwoo nodded solemnly. "We need to send our best. Not just soldiers, but scientists, historians, artists, everyone who can preserve who we are." Outside, another explosion rocked the bunker. They were running out of time. "I'll go," said Taiho. "But not me alone. Captain Minho knows the whispered hope better than anyone. And we'll need Jinwoo. His understanding of our technology might be the only thing humans would value from us." The decision was made quickly after that. The last Dowan stealth ship would carry 200 survivors, a tiny fraction of their once great civilization, toward Earth, while the remaining military forces launched a desperate attack to draw Haram attention away from the escape. As they Prepared to leave, Taiho found himself in the ship's observation deck, watching his homeworld burn. Behind him, refugees boarded with whatever personal items they could carry. A young woman stopped beside him, her arms filled with data crystals. "These contain our history," she said quietly. "Everything we were." Taiho nodded. "And what we might be again, Sun-hee." The ship trembled as its engines powered up. Captain Minho's voice came over the comms. "All stations secure for departure. May the stars guide our path." As the whispered hope slipped away from the dying world, using technology that made it invisible to Haram sensors, Taiho watched the Haram battleships continuing their methodical destruction. On all frequencies, Admiral Shungmin's laughter echoed. The sound of someone who believed victory was complete and uncontested. They didn't know about Earth. They didn't know about humans, and Taiho promised himself they would regret their laughter when they found out. "Captain," Minho's hands trembled as he guided the whispered hope through the final approach to the third planet in this unremarkable yellow star system. Earth looked deceptively peaceful from space, swirls of white clouds over blue oceans and green-brown land masses. Nothing about it suggested this world might be their last hope. "Life support is failing," reported Engineer Jinwoo from the cramped engine room. His voice crackled over the ship's damaged comm system. "We've got maybe 6 hours before air recycling shuts down completely." Minho exchanged a worried glance with Commander Taiho. They'd survived the journey, but just barely. 3 refugee children had died when a power surge damaged one of the cryo chambers. 7 more adults had succumbed to radiation poisoning after a hull breach during their desperate escape. Every death felt like another piece of Dawan culture lost forever. "We need to make contact," Taiho said, looking at the blue planet growing larger in their view screen. "Sun-hee, what do we know about their communication systems?" The young cultural specialist had spent the journey studying the observation data they'd brought. "They use primitive radio waves and some basic quantum entanglement networks. I've been monitoring their broadcasts. They have thousands of languages, but one called English seems to be their international standard." "Can you translate?" Minho asked. Sun-hee nodded. "The ship's computers have been processing their transmissions. We have a working translation matrix, but it's imperfect." The ship shuddered violently as they entered Earth's upper atmosphere. Warning lights flashed across the control panel. "We don't have a choice," Taiho decided. "Send a broad-spectrum message. Tell them we come in peace seeking asylum. Include basic information about the Haram threat." As Sun-hee worked on the transmission, the ship's sensors blared with new alerts. Jinwoo's panicked voice came through the comms. "We're being tracked. Multiple energy signatures locking onto us." Outside the viewport, several small craft, primitive by Dawan standards but surprisingly nimble, moved to intercept them. Earth's defenders had noticed their arrival. "Broadcasting now," Sun-hee announced, adding visual data of the Haram attacks, showing them what happened to our homeworld. For tense minutes, they waited. The Earth vessels maintained distance but didn't fire. Then a voice crackled through their speakers, halting and strangely accented through the translation matrix. "Unknown spacecraft, this is General Park of the United Earth Defense Coalition. Identify yourself and state your intentions." Taiho took a deep breath and stepped forward. "General Park, I am Commander Taiho of the Dawan Preservation Fleet. Our civilization has been destroyed by an empire called the Haram. We seek refuge and offer knowledge in exchange for sanctuary." The response was quicker than expected. "Maintain your current trajectory. You will be escorted to a secure landing facility." 2 days later, Taiho stood in a large conference room at a facility called United Nations Headquarters, facing representatives from Earth's major nations. Behind him, footage of the fall of Dawan played on large screens. The brutal efficiency of the Haram attack, cities crumbling, people fleeing before being cut down. The room was completely silent. UN Secretary Reyes, a woman with stern features, softened by compassionate eyes, was the first to speak when the footage ended. "If what you've shown us is accurate, your people have suffered an unimaginable tragedy." "It is accurate," Taiho confirmed. We have no reason to falsify such things. A military officer spoke up. What's to stop these haram from following? You hear? As if answering his question, an aide rushed into the room and whispered urgently to General Park. The general's expression darkened. It appears we have another visitor, Park announced. A large vessel has appeared at the edge of our solar system. It's broadcasting on the same frequencies your ship used. The room erupted in concerned murmurs. Tejo felt his heart sink. They followed us. Somehow they tracked us. The main screen switched to show a massive warship, angular and threatening, its hull marked with the distinctive red symbols of the Haram Empire. They're broadcasting a message, someone announced. The face that appeared on screen made Tejo's blood run cold. Captain Hayek of the Haram Hunter-Killer Division, known for his efficiency in exterminating problem species. People of Earth, Hyuk began, his translated voice unnaturally smooth. Your world harbors fugitives from Haram justice. The creatures calling themselves Dawans are criminals sentenced to labor camps for crimes against our empire. Release them to us immediately, and we will depart your system without incident. Refuse, and we will consider your planet hostile territory. Secretary Reyes looked to Tejo, her eyes questioning. Everything he said is a lie. Tejo replied firmly. This is how they operate. They justify genocide with false accusations. General Park stepped forward. Even if what you say is true, we don't have the capability to fight a ship like that. An unexpected voice spoke up. Dr. Yuna Kim, from a research division Tejo hadn't been introduced to yet. Actually, sir, Project Thunderbolt is operational. It's never been field tested, but the principles are sound. Tense discussions continued for hours while the Haram ship drew closer. Tejo shared everything he knew about Haram weapons, shielding, and tactics. Earth scientists and military personnel listened intently, occasionally exchanging meaningful glances. When the Haram ship entered Earth's orbit and repeated its demand, Secretary Reyes made her decision. Tell them we're preparing to turn over the refugees, she instructed. Request they move into standard orbit to facilitate transfer. When the Haram ship positioned itself precisely where Earth's military had suggested, Dr. Kim nodded to General Park. They're within range. What happened next astonished even Tejo. 6 orbital platforms that had appeared dormant suddenly aligned, creating a field of energy that enveloped the Haram vessel. The massive warship froze in space, its systems visibly shutting down. Then, with precision that would impress even the most seasoned Dawan fleet commander, Earth's defense network fired strange-looking missiles that bypassed the Haram shields entirely. Captain Hayek's face appeared on screen one last time, his expression changing from arrogance to shock before the transmission cut out. The Haram ship exploded in a brilliant flash that briefly outshone Earth's moon. In the stunned silence that followed, Secretary Reyes turned to Tejo. It seems we have a common enemy now. Perhaps we should discuss that alliance your elder Jiwoo mentioned in your transmission. Tejo looked around at the humans, so physically different from his people, yet united by a common desire to protect their own. Maybe Elder Jiwoo had been right. Maybe these humans were exactly what the surviving Dawans needed. Yes, he agreed. I believe we have much to offer each other. The massive hangar buzzed with activity as humans and Dawans worked side by side. What had once been an abandoned aircraft facility in the New Mexico desert now served as the heart of Earth's first interspecies technological exchange program. 6 weeks had passed since the destruction of the Haram scout ship, and both species understood that time was running short. Engineer Jinwoo stood before a holographic display, gesturing at a complex energy matrix. Across from him, Dr. Amber Lawson scratched her head, her lab coat covered in coffee stains from too many late nights. So your faster-than-light drive creates a bubble of... She searched for the right word. Folded space? Jinwoo nodded eagerly. Yes, exactly. We don't move through space, we move space itself around the vessel. Like an accordion, suggested one of Dr. Lawson's assistants. Compress the space in front, expand behind. A crude analogy, but functional, Jinwoo agreed. The problem is our power cores were manufactured on Dawan Prime. The facilities are gone now. Dr. Lawson tapped her tablet thoughtfully. What if we substitute the quantum stabilizers with our boson condensers? The theory suggests compatibility. Jinwoo's eyes widened. Yes, that could work, but the energy requirements would be enormous. Good thing we've been working on fusion reactors for the past decade. Dr. Lawson grinned. Let's run some simulations. Across the facility, another collaboration was taking shape. Commander Taiho and U.S. Navy Admiral Wilson pored over star charts showing Haram territory. Their empire expanded this far in just 8 years? Admiral Wilson looked incredulous. That's nearly 100 star systems. The Haram don't colonize in the traditional sense, Taiho explained. They strip planets of resources, enslave local populations for labor, then move on when finished. Efficient but utterly devastating. Classic scorched earth tactics, Wilson muttered. No wonder you couldn't stop them alone. Taiho pointed to a cluster of stars near the edge of Haram space. These outposts are lightly defended. If we could, contact the remaining Dawan resistance cells hiding there. We'd need secure communications that the Haram can't intercept, Wilson finished the thought. Our quantum entanglement tech might help with that. Exactly, Taiho nodded. And there's something else. The Haram have never encountered human weapons technology. Your approach is different from anything in the galactic community. Admiral, Wilson chuckled. You mean how Dr. Kim's Thunderbolt system scrambled their ship's electronics? That was just the prototype. Wait until you see what our engineers have been cooking up since then. In another section of the facility, surrounded by screens displaying alien code, Sun Hee worked with a team of Earth's best linguists and diplomats. United Nations Representative Torres, a woman with decades of international negotiation experience, leaned forward with interest. So these messages were intercepted from Dawan resistance cells? Torres asked. Sun Hee nodded, her fingers flying over the strange symbols. They're using old mining colony frequencies, bouncing signals through debris fields to avoid detection. Very clever, but also very fragmented. This one appears to be from Sun Woo, a former defense coordinator who escaped the fall of our third largest colony. Can you respond? Let them know they're not alone? Not directly. Too risky, Sun Hee explained. But we can embed messages in Haram commercial traffic. They won't expect it. Torres smiled. Hiding in plain sight, classic resistance tactic. Days turned into weeks. The collaboration produced results faster than either species had anticipated. Human creativity and unorthodox problem-solving combined perfectly with Dawan technical knowledge and theoretical understanding. In a secure underground bunker beneath the main facility, General Park met with the highest-ranking officials from Earth's major powers. Holographic projections displayed the first prototype of a hybrid human Dawan vessel. The Defiance-class destroyer, General Park announced. Combining Dawan FTL technology with Earth's weapon systems and our new adaptive shield configuration, the Chinese representative leaned forward. How soon until production? We've converted 6 shipyards already, replied the European Union official. With the Dawan's fabrication techniques, we can have the first squadron ready in months, not years. And the Haram won't see it coming, added the Indian defense minister. According to Commander Taiho, they don't consider us a legitimate threat. General Park nodded grimly. Their arrogance will be their downfall, but we need to be realistic. This is a technologically superior empire with centuries of warcraft experience. True, acknowledged the Russian representative, but they've never faced humans before. In the research wing, Jinwoo stared in amazement as Dr. Lawson's team demonstrated their newest innovation. A small drone phased partially out of normal spacetime, becoming transparent before solidifying again. How did you? Jinwoo began. We adapted the principles from your FTL bubble technology, Dr. Lawson explained proudly. Instead of moving space around an object, we're moving the object partially out of phase with normal space. A phase shift weapon could bypass Haram shields entirely, Jinwoo realized, his mind racing with possibilities. Exactly, Dr. Lawson confirmed. They'll never expect it. Meanwhile, Sun Hee burst into Commander Taiho's office, her eyes bright with excitement. We've made contact. Multiple resistance cells have responded to our embedded messages. Taeho stood abruptly. How many? 17. Confirmed groups across 8 systems, including Sunwoo's network. They've been gathering intelligence on Haram fleet movements for months. For the first time since the fall of their homeworld, Taeho felt a genuine spark of hope. Are they willing to coordinate with us? More than willing, Sun-hee replied. They're desperate for any chance to fight back. But they're surprised we found allies. No one expected humans to be, well, so helpful, suggested Taeho. Or so dangerous. Both, Sun-hee admitted. That evening, as the facility quieted for the night shift, Taeho found himself standing at a large window overlooking the desert. The stars above seemed somehow different from this planet, arranged in unfamiliar patterns, yet still points of light in the darkness. Admiral Wilson joined him, offering a cup of coffee. Penny for your thoughts, Commander? I was just thinking about how quickly things have changed, Taeho admitted. 6 weeks ago, we were refugees with nothing but memories. Now we're planning to take the fight to an interstellar empire, Wilson finished. Crazy times. Do you think we have a chance? Taeho asked quietly. Wilson took a long sip of coffee before answering. You know what humans are really good at, Commander? Being underestimated. Throughout our history, the most dangerous opponent has always been the one with nothing left to lose. Taeho thought about the Dawan refugees adapting to life on Earth, about the resistance fighters hiding in the shadows of the Haram Empire, about the unlikely alliance forming between 2 species that had never met before disaster struck. The Haram are still laughing about your fall, Wilson said softly. They haven't even considered us worth their attention yet. And when they do? Taeho asked. Admiral Wilson smiled grimly. By then, it'll be too late for them. The first rule of warfare, never give your enemy time to prepare. They've given us exactly that. As if on cue, the facility lights dimmed briefly as a massive power surge accompanied the first successful test of the human-Dawan hybrid drive system. In the distance, a cheer went up from the engineering bay. See? Wilson gestured with his coffee cup. We're just getting started. Space rippled like disturbed water as 5 sleek vessels emerged at the edge of the Vega Prime system. Unlike the bulky Haram ships patrolling the area, these craft moved with an eerie grace, their hulls a strange blend of Dawan flowing architecture and human pragmatic design. On the bridge of the lead ship, christened Prometheus, Admiral Do-hyun waited silently as the sensors gathered data. Haram patrol craft detected, reported Lieutenant Rivera, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. 2 heavy cruisers, 5 destroyers. Standard defensive formation. Do-hyun nodded, his expression calm despite the tension humming through the bridge. After months of preparation, the first strike of the Human-Dawan alliance was about to begin. They haven't detected us yet, added Communications Officer Kira. Our phase shift cloaking is holding. Good, Do-hyun replied. What's the status of the mining facility? Tactical Officer Henderson pulled up a 3-dimensional map of the planet below. Approximately 800 Dawan laborers, 3,000 native vegan workers. Haram presence concentrated in these 3 security hubs. Do-hyun studied the layout carefully. 6 months ago, he had been a junior officer in Earth's Pacific Fleet. Now he commanded humanity's first interstellar strike force. The irony wasn't lost on him. Earth had unified faster under the threat of alien invasion than any diplomatic effort had ever achieved. Commence Operation Lighthouse, he ordered. Across all 5 ships, crews sprang into action with well-rehearsed precision. The fleet split smoothly, each vessel taking its designated position around the unsuspecting Haram patrol. Aboard the Prometheus, Engineer Jinwoo monitored the phase shift generators with intense focus. The technology, a hybrid of Dawan spatial manipulation and human quantum mechanics, was revolutionary but temperamental. Phase weapons charged, he reported. Ready on your mark. Admiral Do-hyun took a deep breath. All ships, weapons free. Execute. What happened next would later be described by surviving Haram as fighting ghosts. The Alliance ships, still partially phased, launched their attack. Specially designed missiles passed directly through Haram, shields as if they didn't exist, rematerializing only after penetrating the hull. Precision strikes targeted propulsion and communication systems first, leaving the Haram vessels dead in space before they could send distress signals. Within minutes, 4 Haram ships had been disabled. The remaining 3 attempted to regroup, finally realizing they were under attack. "Incoming transmission," announced Officer Kira. "The Haram commander wants to talk." Do-hyun nodded. On screen, the face that appeared belonged to Haram Captain Yule, his gray skin flushed dark with anger or fear, perhaps both. "Unknown vessels," he barked. "Identify yourselves immediately, or face destruction." Do-hyun allowed himself a small smile. "This is Admiral Do-hyun of the Earth-Dowan Alliance. Your ships are disabled. Your communications are blocked. Surrender your forces or be destroyed." Confusion crossed the Haram captain's face. "Earth? I know of no such world in this sector." "You wouldn't," Do-hyun replied calmly. "We're new to interstellar warfare. Consider this our introduction." Before the Haram could respond, Lieutenant Rivera interrupted. "Sir, they're charging weapons." "Target their main reactor," Do-hyun ordered. "Fire." The Prometheus's main cannon, a weapon that combined Dowan energy-focusing technology with human nuclear propulsion, fired a single shot. The beam sliced through the Haram flagship like a hot knife through butter, severing the command deck from the rest of the ship. Within seconds, the remaining Haram vessels powered down their weapons. "They're surrendering," Rivera confirmed, sounding almost surprised. "Begin planetary operations," Do-hyun ordered. "Tell Colonel Wu to proceed with the ground assault." 12 hours later, Colonel Wu's strike team had secured the mining facility with minimal casualties. The Haram guards, accustomed to bullying, unarmed laborers had crumbled before the combined tactics of human special forces and Dowan resistance fighters. In the main administrative building, Do-hyun came face to face with Haram General Woo-sung, now a prisoner. The general had been found hiding in a panic room attempting to destroy records. "You," Woo-sung spat when he saw Do-hyun. "You're not Dowan." "No," Do-hyun agreed. "I'm human." "Humans," Woo-sung repeated the word like it tasted bitter. "The Emperor will obliterate your world for this interference." A figure stepped from behind Do-hyun, a Dowan woman named Lena, her face bearing the distinctive scarring of Haram labor camps. "He doesn't even remember me," she said quietly to Do-hyun. "I served in his household for 3 years." Woo-sung's eyes narrowed as recognition dawned. "You were property," he hissed. "How dare you stand as an equal to warriors?" Do-hyun fought the urge to strike the Haram general. Instead, he simply gestured to the human and Dowan soldiers working efficiently around them. "Look closely, General. This is what happens when you underestimate property. This is what happens when you laugh while civilizations fall." The general's arrogance finally cracked as he saw Dowan laborers being freed by human medics, saw former slaves donning Alliance uniforms, saw the impossible cooperation between species that should never have met. "Impossible," he whispered. "The Emperor will never allow this." "Your Emperor doesn't know yet," Do-hyun replied. "But he will soon." News of the Vega Prime liberation spread through hidden channels across Haram space. On 3 more worlds, the scenario repeated. Alliance ships, appearing from nowhere, Haram defenses falling before they could respond, and liberation forces freeing enslaved populations. On Taral, a mining world stripped nearly bare by Haram operations, the Alliance forces discovered something unexpected. Not just Dowan prisoners, but captives from a dozen different species. As they were freed, many pledged to join the fight. A month into the campaign, Admiral Do-hyun stood on the observation deck of the Prometheus, watching as a fleet twice the size of his original force prepared for its next jump. Each ship now carried crew members from multiple species, all united by their hatred of the Haram Empire. Commander Taiho joined him at the viewport. "Minos has fallen. That makes 7 worlds liberated." And the Haram response? Do-hyun asked. Scattered. Disorganized, Taiho reported with satisfaction. They still don't understand what they're facing. Their standard tactics depend on overwhelming force and fear. They've never encountered an enemy who can simply bypass their defenses. Will they adapt? Do-hyun wondered aloud. Eventually, Taiho admitted. But the reports from Sunwoo's intelligence network suggest the Empire is already fracturing. 3 subjugated species have launched their own rebellions, inspired by our success. Do-hyun nodded thoughtfully. Phase 2, then? Yes, Taiho confirmed. It's time to take the fight directly to them. As if on cue, the ship's communications officer appeared. Admiral, we've received a priority transmission from Earth Command. The main fleet is ready. Do-hyun turned from the viewport, his expression resolute. Tell them we're proceeding as planned. Target, the Doan homeworld. As the Prometheus prepared to jump to its next destination, Do-hyun caught sight of his reflection in the viewport glass. 6 months ago, he had been just another naval officer. Now he led an interstellar liberation force. The universe had become much larger, much more dangerous, but also filled with more hope than he had ever imagined possible. The Haram taught the galaxy that it's acceptable to laugh at the fallen. He said quietly to Taiho. We're teaching them the cost of that laughter. The once beautiful skies of Doan Prime, now called Haram Central Colony 6, were filled with ships. Massive Haram dreadnoughts formed a defensive wall around the planet, their weapons primed and ready. Emperor Gunwoo himself had arrived to crush the growing rebellion that had, over the past year, evolved from a minor annoyance to an existential threat. Standing on the command deck of his flagship, the Emperor's Fist, Gunwoo watched the tactical display with growing irritation. Around him, his most trusted commanders shifted nervously. Explain again, he demanded of Admiral Junsu, how a scattered group of refugees and an unknown primitive species have managed to liberate 7 of our mining worlds. Admiral Junsu swallowed hard. The intelligence is still incomplete, Emperor. Their ships use some form of technology that allows them to bypass our shield systems, and they appear without warning. Our early detection systems don't register their approach. Impossible. Gunwoo dismissed the explanation with a wave of his hand. No species in the charted galaxy has such technology. These are merely clever tricks and exaggerated reports. A junior officer approached, bowing deeply. Emperor, our long-range scanners have detected unusual energy readings at the edge of the system. The rebels? Gunwoo asked. Unknown, sir. The signatures don't match. Any known configuration? Gunwoo smiled thinly. Finally, position all ships for maximum defensive coverage. I want these troublemakers obliterated the moment they appear. But when the Alliance fleet arrived, it didn't come in at the edge of the system as expected. Instead, reality itself seemed to ripple directly in front of the Haram formation, as over 200 ships of various designs materialized at point-blank range. What is this? Gunwoo demanded, genuine shock in his voice for perhaps the first time in his reign. Before anyone could answer, the main view screen activated. The face that appeared was human. Admiral Do-hyun, flanked by Commander Taiho and representatives from 6 other species formerly under Haram control. Emperor Gunwoo, Do-hyun stated calmly. This is Admiral Do-hyun of the Galactic Alliance. Your empire of exploitation ends today. Gunwoo recovered quickly, his expression shifting to contempt. You think your handful of ships can challenge the might of the Haram Empire? We have ruled this sector for centuries. Look again, Do-hyun suggested. The tactical display updated, showing Alliance ships appearing behind the Haram formation, below it, above it, surrounding them completely in a 3-dimensional net of firepower. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across the Emperor's face. Open fire, he commanded. Full barrage. Haram weapons flared to life, launching devastating energy bolts toward the Alliance ships. But the incoming fire seemed to pass through many vessels as if they weren't there, while others absorbed the impacts with shield technology the Haram had never encountered. Return fire, came Do-hyun's quiet order across the Alliance fleet. What followed wasn't the brutal exchange of firepower typical in Haram warfare. Instead, precision strikes disabled ship after ship with surgical accuracy. The Alliance wasn't aiming to destroy. They were neutralizing the Haram ability to fight while minimizing casualties. On the bridge of the Alliance flagship Redemption, Do-hyun watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. Beside him, Commander Taeho's eyes were fixed on the planet below, his homeworld, seeing it for the first time since he fled with the last refugees. "Our ground forces are ready," reported Colonel Wu from her position at Tactical. "The resistance cells on the surface have begun their coordinated attacks on Haram control centers." "And the Emperor's flagship?" Do-hyun asked. "Isolated as planned," Wu confirmed. "Their communications are jammed. They can't coordinate with the rest of their fleet." Taeho turned to Do-hyun. "It's time for the final message." Do-hyun nodded, then activated the ship-wide communication system. "All hands prepare for phase shift assault. Target, the Emperor's Fist." Aboard the Emperor's Fist, chaos reigned as systems failed across the massive vessel. Gunwoo watched in disbelief as his supposedly invincible flagship lost power sector by sector. "What is happening?" he demanded, but his officers had no answers. The ship shuddered violently as a smaller vessel, barely visible through the viewports, passed partially. Through their hull, its outline blurred as if it existed in two realities at once. Alarm klaxons wailed as atmospheric integrity was compromised in multiple sections. "We're being boarded," someone shouted. The doors to the command deck slid open, revealing figures in sleek armor, humans and Dawans moving in perfect coordination. At their center stood Sunwoo, once a lowly administrator, now the leader of the Dawan resistance. "Remember me, Emperor?" Sunwoo asked quietly. "You probably don't. I was just one of millions your forces enslaved." Gunwoo reached for his ceremonial weapon, but found his arms restrained by two human soldiers who had appeared seemingly from nowhere. "Your reign is over," Sunwoo continued. "Not just here, but across all your territories. At this moment, similar scenes are playing out on 27 Haram worlds. The species you enslaved are rising together." On the main view screen, footage began playing, scenes of liberation across the galaxy as Haram control centers fell one by one. Most shocking to the Emperor were images of his own people, ordinary Haram citizens, laying down arms or even joining the revolutionaries. "Impossible," Gunwoo whispered, but there was no conviction in his voice. Hours later, as the sun set over the once again free world of Dawan Prime, a different broadcast played across every communication channel in the sector. The image showed Dawan leader Kibum standing alongside Earth General Chen and representatives from a dozen formerly subjugated species. "Today marks the end of the Haram Empire," Kibum announced, his voice strong despite the emotion evident on his face. "But it does not mark the beginning of vengeance. We who were oppressed will not become oppressors." General Chen stepped forward. "The newly formed Galactic Cooperative offers membership to all peoples, including the Haram citizens who reject their empire's cruel practices. We seek justice, not retribution." A Vegan representative, her crystalline features catching the light, added, "Those who committed war crimes will face proper trials, but ordinary citizens will not suffer for their leaders' crimes." The camera panned out to show the diverse gathering, species that had once been enemies now standing together on the steps of what had been the Haram governor's palace. Aboard the Redemption, Admiral Do-hyun watched the broadcast with Commander Taeho and Engineer Jinwoo. "It's hard to believe," Jinwoo said softly. "A year ago we were refugees with nothing." "Not nothing," Taeho corrected him. "We had hope, and we found allies who understood what it means to fight against overwhelming odds." Do-hyun smiled slightly. "Humans have a long history of rooting for the underdog, and we've had our share of tyrants too." He gestured toward the viewport, where ships from a dozen worlds moved in formation, clearing space debris and beginning the work of rebuilding. "This is just the beginning." On the planet below, Sun-hee walked through the ruins of what had once been her hometown. Much of the city had been destroyed when the Haram first conquered the world, with only functional structures rebuilt to serve imperial needs. Yet among the rubble she found a small courtyard garden somehow still alive, native Dowan flowers blooming despite everything. A human researcher named Yuri joined her, carefully cataloging plant samples for the restoration project. "Beautiful," she commented, seeing the flowers. "They survived all this time?" "Life finds a way," Sunhee replied, kneeling to touch the delicate petals. "Just like people do." As twilight deepened into night, celebration fires burned across the planet's surface, visible even from orbit. The newly freed peoples of a dozen worlds looked up at unfamiliar stars and, for the first time in years, felt not fear, but possibility. In what had once been the Emperor's private chambers, now converted to the Cooperative's temporary headquarters, Kaibum studied a star chart showing former Haram territory. "So much to rebuild," he murmured. "But not alone," came the reply from General Chen. "Never alone again." Outside, the stars shone on a galaxy forever changed, not by the fall of one civilization or the rise of another, but by the realization that even in the darkest times, unexpected alliances could change the course of history. They had laughed, while the Dowans fell. But with humanity at their side, they had risen for something better than revenge. They had risen for justice, for freedom, and for a future where no species would stand alone against tyranny again.